I'll tell you what, the last 3-4 games, obviously there's been a bit of an uplift, but we've seen now. I mean, we saw against Liverpool the fatigue really starting to set in. And look, don't forget, we saw this happen last season as we approached that European semi-final. We was fucked. I think that was part of the reason we didn't perform well against Frankfurt. And the likelihood is, you know, if David Moyes does the same again on Saturday, I know Nigel's very much, no, players can just play. Well, yeah, they can play, but they're not going to be 100%, are they? You know, if fine margins at this level of football, and if they're not fit and rested and firing, you've got the likes of Zuma who's playing with a fucking a floating kneecap, just ready to pop at any time. Antonio was blown out of his arse yesterday. Even Rice looked tired. So many players looked tired. Cresswell looked knackered. If he plays them every 3 games, this same set of players, do you think that we're going to have the same issue? Do you think that we're just going to start to fade? Because he just seems like he's slipping back into that again. It seems like he's stumbled on something that's worked. You know, the results have improved, and he's sticking with it, and he's kind of scared to change it. But do you think that's going to affect us? I mean, if we go up against, I know Palace played on Tuesday night, but you know, like I've said, heaven forbid, if we lose that game, you know, what do you do then against Man United and City? Do you just write those games off and rest players in that one, or do you keep on playing the same 11 players every game and just hope that we can reach the same levels that we need to reach to get results? What do you think? I think it's a bit of a worry. He's got no excuses this year. He's got a squad that he can use, you know, and he's not using it. He's not using it at all. How the fuck did Fornals not get on the pitch yesterday?
Well, yeah, perhaps naturally. I don't see it a big problem. Players can play. When they're playing, they do less training. So they would have had today off. They'll be doing a bit of light training. And when you ask players, they all just want to play. And I know they need protecting. And I get what you say about Zuma and Antonio, I suppose, with his age. But for me, I just think, maximum, I think we've got 7 games left. If we include getting to the final, not jumping the gun. So I can't see the fact that the players can't turn up and do it. But then he could utilise the squad a bit better. He had Antonio off on 60 odd minutes, and he might, you know, the weekend we might see Danny Ings start and Danny Ings come off after an hour and bring Antonio on. So no cause for concern from me at the moment.
For me, I think he needs to rotate the squad a little bit. So I think out of the 11 players that we keep on continuously playing, there is an opportunity for, say, Flynn Downs to come in, Fornals to come in, and Ogbonna to come in. So I do think a little bit of rotation needs to happen. I think the players that are on the bench are good enough to come in and do a job. But obviously the main 11 players that played against Liverpool and in the previous game are the ones that we need to be using more of. But a bit of rotation needs to happen because they were looking leggy and they were looking tired. With Antonio, I think Mbamba is a definite easy replacement for Antonio rather than Ings and even Cornet, who really aren't the same kind of player as Antonio. We need in that Moyes system a battering ram type of player.
I don't really think he has too much choice other than to play the players who are working in that system, to be honest. I know some of them are going to be tired and there's going to have to be a little bit of rotation in terms of giving Antonio, Declan Rice and people as much rest as he possibly can. But the thing is, we can't complain. It will be a bit hypocritical for us to complain when we're not going after games and then complain that we're wearing players out by going after games. See what I mean? We can't just complain by default. So that's my view. I think this is the only way forward. I do agree with Nigel. I think players should be able to play more than once a week. Training will be less. And yeah, as long as the likes of Antonio, the vulnerable ones, don't play the whole 90 minutes, I think we're fine.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But do we think, if that's the case, have we just got basically 11 players in and one system that can work for us? Because if you look at the bench, there's a lot of players on there that should be able to do a job for us. You know, Pablo Fornals, Flynn Downs, Emerson, Ogbonna. There's a lot of players there. I'm not sure. You remember that game last year, Gary, when we went to Spurs and the players were literally out on their arses. They were dead. And he would literally rather play the same 11 players at 50% than he would do fresh players.
I would say no, it's not necessarily the case. I would say in an ideal world, we'd do well in the next couple of games, or especially the next one. So, for instance, if we beat Palace, we're safe, right? So, throw all our chips in against Palace. Play the strongest possible team. Palace are on a downturn in form. Let's try and force that win. 37 points, safe. That means for the rest of the season in the league, we don't have to play the strongest team, right? We can rotate a hell of a lot more than we have been, and focus primarily on the Conference League.
It's a very difficult conundrum because, in effect, we've found form now. So when you find form, you choose the players in form. Now, most of those players have found form, relatively speaking, at the same time. But you do need to look after them. However, I do agree that they should have enough to be able to play more than one game a week. However, as we know, i.e. Souček, Moyes doesn't like dropping players anyway. If he relies on them, he doesn't drop them. He's done it with Antonio in the past. However, at this moment, I agree with Gary, we need to play our strongest available team to get those points to get us over the line in the relegation battle. Once that materialises, then you'll probably be inclined to make more changes, or Moyes will be. However, you know, there are plenty of players on that bench that can take the roles up of others, i.e. Downs replacing Souček. Emerson should come back in for me on Saturday against Cresswell now. But we'll see.
I think there's 14, 15 players there that he'll use. He will bring in, he will move about. You're going to have your hardcore, mate, you like it or not, you know, Rice, Souček, Fabianski will play the league games. We know Areola will play in the cup. At the back, he will bring Oggy in. He may give Zuma a rest, may give Aguerd a rest. So he will utilise that. The reason a chance against Man U, whatever he made in switch to 3 centre-backs. He could have Cresswell as one of the centre-backs and have Emerson out wide. Cornet's coming back in. He's relying on Cornet, try and get his pace, but I'm not sure he's a great finisher of the ball, to be fair, to be honest. But I think there's like 14 that he trusts, even Fornals, and we've seen Lanzini. God knows what he's doing with Lanzini. I think he's absolutely wasting him, just not doing anything with him apart from Europe. So we'll see.
In my mind, there's 4 players, roughly, that are undroppable. That either because I think we need them, firstly. Secondly, they're on form. Thirdly, they don't look like the type of players that get fatigue, or should we say fatigue won't last long. For me, that'd be Bowen, Rice, Paqueta, and funnily enough, Soufal. The rest of the team are interchangeable with some of the subs or themselves. The rest of the team, you know, people like Antonio and Cresswell probably need more protection than others. But interestingly, what Doddsy said earlier, I mean, bringing Ings in for Antonio is pointless in that system because it makes Ings look shit, which is starting to annoy me because people are already questioning Ings, but it's the same old story, isn't it? He don't play in that system. Will he give Movamba a chance? He might do now. because of the fact that their league and cup is done and they've won it. So I can't see why you wouldn't use him at some point more now. But for me, the undroppables, because they don't want to be dropped and they don't need to be dropped and they recover well, Soufal, Rice, Paqueta and Bowen. I mean, the centre-backs, they can be used and changed a lot. Nigel's right, Ogbonna's there, Cresswell can be brought in to play centre-back, blah, blah, blah. But I think the important players need to play. The players that are in form, the players that recover quickly should always be in that starting team. And that is Paqueta and Rice, Bowen and Soufal.
Yeah, I mean, look, I completely get it, and I get what Gary's saying, and I get what everyone's saying about playing your best team because, you know, the points are important. But I'll keep going back to last season, and the best team ended up becoming a shadow of what they were because they were tired. So the question is, would a tired or a fatigued Souček be a better option than Fornals? Souček and Fornals is a bad example because I'd like Fornals to play over Souček anyway. But you get what I'm trying to say. Would an absolutely knackered Paqueta be better than Pablo Fornals in the 10? You know, Flynn Downs and Souček, I should say. You know, would a knackered Zuma, barely able to walk, be better than Ogbonna? I mean, the only thing is when you look at Ogbonna's stats, our win rate when we've got Zuma is incredibly high. He's clearly a very important player to us defensively. The only issue we've got with Danny Ings is useless to West Ham at the moment because Danny Ings is not a counter-attacking striker. He's just not. There's very particular type of player you need as a forward when you're playing a counter-attacking game, and you've obviously got to be dynamic, quick, and able to run the channels. And that is not him. So yeah, that's the question. Are the starting 11 the best option if they're tired? You know.
But if your source is to be believed about there's this dream team or A team, whatever you call it, then surely they will all see that every game should be played on its merit, and we don't have to play the same system the whole time. We can play two up front and then get the best out of things. What I mean is, if Antonio's fucked, why would they not say, come on, let's change the system two up front at any point?
Yeah, no, I believe that David Moyes manages the team. So I think, I believe that. I believe, what happens once a game starts. I think he's managing that team. So that's down to him. That's his decision, what happens there. But I think the tactical shift and everything else, that was something that was derived from the coaching staff and everyone else. I think the game plan leading up to that is something that they all have to agree on, that they all feed into. But do you not think that in that setup, if you was a member of that team, after the season we've had, if you've stumbled onto a winning formula, would you want to be the one that says, no, you've got to change it, you've got to do this? I think most people would probably vote and say, look, let's play it safe, let's play with our strongest team, let's get it go. Because if you play with two up front, it does mean you're losing someone somewhere at the moment. So I don't know that a system change to accommodate Danny Ings is probably the right thing to do. I don't think it is, not at the moment. But I think that, like I say, I think with the way that West Ham play, which is a majority of the time without the ball, so 30% possession is kind of an average for us, which means that the other 70% of the game we're chasing the ball. So it's even more intense to play without the ball because you're in a fucking rondo for 70% of the game trying to hunt the ball back down again. And if we do want to play a pressing game, which is what we're playing now, and we do want to get on the front foot and stop the opposition having the ball in the danger area, it's very intense to expect Premier League players to play every 2 to 3 days for a prolonged period. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the challenges. I mean, look at what Soufal done to Jota, and the same sort of thing happened to Cresswell in that game as well. Bowen gets fouled all the time. I think it's really intense. They get the shit kicked out of them. So we've done well not to get any injuries, not to pick any injuries up. But with the way that we're playing now, which is more on the front foot, even though we're not getting possession, when I say on the front foot, we're not just sitting back anymore. we do appear to be pressing an awful lot more. To maintain those energy levels, is that's going to take some effort. And it isn't. I'm not saying that the players that are not going to put that effort in, but if they're not feeling 100%, if they're not 100%, they won't be able to. Don't matter how much they want to play. Look at Declan Rice against Liverpool. He weren't himself. Sloppy passes, something he never does. That's fatigue. That's mental fatigue as well. That's even Declan Rice was suffering from that.